In this video, we're going to be finding the sum and the difference of two functions. We're going to do one example where we're finding the sum, and we'll do another example where we're finding the difference. Let's take a look at our first example. Here we have let f of x equal 3 times the square root of x. So that will be our f of x. And we have our g of x equals to negative 10 times the square root of x. It wants us to find the addition of f plus g of x, and then it's asking us to state the domain and then evaluate the sum when x equals 4. So when we have f plus g of x, what that's really asking us to do is to take our f of x and add that with our g of x. So we're simply going to replace our f of x and our g of x with those functions and add them together. So we'll have that the f plus g of x equals 3 times the square root of x plus negative 10 times the square root of x. Because both of our radicals have the same radical, we're able to add those together. And so that's going to tell us that our sum of f and g of x is going to end up being a negative 7 square root of x, and that is going to be our sum. So remember that the domain consists of all real numbers that are common to the domains of f and the domains of g. So if we look at f, or 3 times the square root of x, we know that we can only have positive numbers here. And if we look at negative 10 times the square root of x, which is our g of x, we can only have positive numbers here as well. So that's going to tell us that our domain is going to be all numbers such that x is greater than or equal to 0. And so there is our domain. Then it asks us to evaluate the sum when x is 4. So what that means is it wants to know what is f plus g of 4. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing our x, and instead we're going to be putting that 4 in its spot. And then we're going to solve. So our f of g of 4 is going to be negative 14. And so that's how you sum or find the sum of two functions. Let's practice finding the difference of two functions. So if we take a look at our next example here, we have f of x equals 3x squared minus 2x squared plus 5. Actually, that's a bit of a typo. This should actually say 3x to the third. That should be a third. There we go. So 3x to the third minus 2x squared plus 5. And our g of x is going to equal x to the third minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 2. And we're being asked to find f minus g of x, to find that function. Then we're going to state the domain and then evaluate the difference when x equals negative 2. So when we're finding the function f of g, f minus g of x, we're going to be taking our f of x and subtracting our g of x from it. So we're simply going to plug in our f of x and then subtract our g of x from that. So this is going to look like 3x to the third minus 2x squared plus 5 minus, but remember we're subtracting all of x to the third minus 3x squared plus 4x minus 2. So we'll actually need to make sure that we distribute that negative sign to each piece. So what we really have is 3x to the third minus 2x squared plus 5 minus x to the third plus 3x squared minus 4x plus 2. And from here, we're simply going to combine our like terms to come up with our final function, the difference of f and g of x. And so here we see that our 3x to the third can go with our minus x to the third, and that's going to give us a 2x to the third. We've got a 2x squared, a negative 2x squared, and a positive 3x squared. And we combine those, we'll end up with an x squared. We have a 4x, a negative 4x, and that doesn't have anything to go with, so just negative 4x. And lastly, we've got our 5 and our 2. And if we add those, we get 7. And so this will be our solution of the difference of those functions. So the difference of f and g of x is 2x to the third plus x squared minus 4x plus 7. Now to find the domain, again remember that the domain consists of all real numbers that are common to the domain of f and to the domain of g. So if we look at the domain of f, right, of our f of x domain, that's a polynomial. So it's all real numbers. And again, we have a polynomial for g of x. So here we'll have x equals all real numbers. So our domain for the difference is going to be x equals all real numbers, because that's what they both have in common. Now, in order to evaluate, we're going to take our f minus g of negative 2. So we're going to plug that negative 2 in to all of those spots. So let's give ourselves a little bit more room. Okay, so we have a 2x to the third plus x squared minus 4x plus 7. And in all of those spots, we're going to be putting, all of those x's spots, we're going to be putting that negative 2. So we're going to plug in that negative 2. And then we can just plug this right into our calculator. So we can just take all of this right here and plug that into our calculator. And that's going to tell us that our difference of f and g of negative 2. All right, so let's plug that in, right? So 2 times negative 2 to the third power plus negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 2 plus 7. Notice I've used parentheses around all of my negative 2's. That's really important. I hit enter, and I'm going to see that that's going to give me a value of 3. So now I have all 3 of the answers that it asked for us.